Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
And my name is James.
It's the end of game week 21, rolling on to game week 22 very quickly. We have a game starting tomorrow evening again, James. And for the regular listeners, they'll know that we sometimes have a little chat before we start on air. You were very polite in asking me how I was doing before we started recording. I did not ask you how you are doing because I wanted to save it for the reaction on air. How you doing, James?
You wanker.
Mate, I have sympathy. Trust me.
I am vexed, to put it mildly, with what's going on at my football club. But I think we'll get on to that. Fortunately, it's obviously going to be at the end of the games we review, so I've got about 45 minutes to an hour to kind of calm down and get into the flow of the podcast first.
I'm fine. In reverse order today for a change.
Fuck off. My health is fine. That's obviously the main thing. I am raging still this morning. Let's talk about FPL. FPL's better.
Well, tell us how you did. I mean, I don't know if it is massively better, is it, for either of us? I had a very interesting week. I obviously moved on Anguissa for Foden, and I captained Foden. Wasn't particularly successful. And I also sold Chris Wood, and I decided to go to Dominic Calvert-Lewin. A similar move to what you did. I just didn't have the cojones to put the armband on him, James. I looked at it and thought, okay, he's got Newcastle, you're quite right. Leeds following that. And then I saw 2 games after that, Fulham. So I thought, you know what? For 3 out of the next 4 game weeks, Dominic Calvert-Lewin's definitely a good shout. Obviously, that failed miserably, but my game week was 57 minus 4, so 53 net, which I thought was okay, if I'm honest with you. But it was made up of 3 players: Bamford, Mo Salah, Stuart Dallas, and that was it. I like the Stuart Dallas returns, primarily because I picked him over Soufal and Lowton because I thought he was the most likely to get an attacking return. And when your logic plays out, it's always a little bit satisfying. It doesn't make us any better or worse in terms of FPL managers, but when you do something for a particular reason and that reason plays out, then you think, actually, yeah, nice, at least it's worked out. But Dallas, Salah, and Bamford made up all my points this week, and that was that.
Mine was made up of Salah, Bamford, and Diaz. I see we're back in the routine, Such of you beating me by 1 point. Unfortunately, now it's not going to do you any favors. I finished on 56 minus 4, bought Gundogan in for Rafinha and Dominic Calvert-Lewin in for Harry Kane. So I've got about 5 million sitting in the bank at the moment, ready to buy Heung-min Son, but probably not going to do that. So yeah, Captain Calvert-Lewin, a little bit like yourself. It's like, okay, fine. It is what it is. I certainly won't be sticking the armband on him again anytime soon. But otherwise, like, okay, yeah, I mentioned for a number of weeks that Everton's one of the teams that kind of wanted to keep in mind and target. In a roundabouts way, them losing and being that bad is probably now going to stop me buying, say, Luca Dean on top of that as well. So just go, okay, look, fine. There's a little bit of Everton. He's consistent, generally speaking, as a lot of them around his price. Watkins, Antonio, Bamford, they have bad spells. They'll have goal scoring spells. So happy to run with that at the moment. A little bit like yourself, kind of pleased in the decision in terms of benching, because it's always a scary moment when you lose Souček on the bench, right?
Yep.
And it's interesting that I bench boosted in game week 19, and the last 2 game weeks, I always just send my team out, locked in, good luck, everyone. And the last 2 weeks, I've had quite a few people saying, that's a bench boost, James. Well, I have used it, so that's not going to happen. The points in the 2 weeks would have been 5 in game week 20, and this week, 4.
I had 4 on my bench as well this week. Not great.
So when you make the right selections in terms of benching and getting it right for a change, that's always pleasing. Obviously, the transfers didn't particularly work out, but I've got 3 Man City players. I've got Calvert-Lewin still with Leeds and Fulham in 2 of the next 3. And the Fulham game could be part of a double. We don't know that as yet. Potential double after that as well. So it's fine. It's all right. I've as I said, I've got about 5 million in the blank. I could go straight from Ademola Lookman to Heung-min Son this week. it's probably a move I'm going to make at the weekend rather than this week. I don't see any value in getting him in before Chelsea, personally.
Sure. Are you may roll this week as your
Possibly.
strategy mindset at the moment?
Possibly, quite possibly. Bound to be a bit of rotation again, probably because it's midweek fixtures and then weekend again straight afterwards. The bench is quite strong. I'm going to be setting up in terms of, I'm going to play Souček this week away to Villa, but benching wise, we're still going to have Justin Soufal and Lookman as cover. If I get Son in, I'm taking Souček out the team as well. Genuinely, I don't even think that's worth it.
Yeah.
Villa, as we've seen in a couple of games, not so much recently, but I'm thinking like the reverse fixture against Southampton, problems with set pieces and stuff. So in an odd way, I could see him returning this week. To be fair, once you saw the teams yesterday in your game, you did think, oh, wow, like West Ham will score from a set piece. Sure enough, you did. It was just a bit late in the day.
It was too late in the day, yeah, to have any impact on the game. So
I didn't catch that.
No, you didn't. We didn't catch that, Suj.
I'm trying to turn this off because I've muted the thing. Yeah,
What is it?
It's my iPad, but it keeps beeping. I'm like, why the hell is it muting? Why is it still making noise when the volume is at 0 and it's clearly muted?
That's funny that because it's a little bit like me when I see Mourinho come on my TV and I press mute, but in my head I can still hear him completely yapping and talking bollocks.
I've powered it off now. We're going to run down the games. I'm not sure if I'm going to make a move this week, midweek. The move that is on the cards for me is Marcus Rashford to Jack Grealish. Rashford's blanked for me in 3 or 4 games in a row now, and I always feel like at any moment he's going to punish me. And if I sell him, he's going to pop off this midweek. They're at home to Southampton. It's not a great fixture, but it's not the worst fixture either. Do we know if Walker Peters is going to be back?
Unlikely.
Yeah,
but I think they'll just. To be honest, I was annoyed with myself that I didn't have the foresight once Hassan Hootel had said on Friday that Romeo had a chance. I was annoyed at myself that I didn't have the foresight to think, well, they'll just play Ward-Prowse at right back. But we'll talk about Wams in terms of that battle with him and Grealish was quite interesting. So yeah, I might assume from that then that for Grealish, West Ham at home is an easy fixture, is it?
I think Villa will beat us this week. Yeah, I do.
I'm probably more interested in getting Grealish than Son as well as it stands. I'm looking at alternatives for the weekend because Salah's now going to be heavily captained in this game week coming up. And in 23, Son is going to be heavily captained against West Brom purely because it's West Brom. But there are alternatives. Bruno Fernandes against Everton. If you fancy something from the Liverpool City fixture, there are definitely alternatives. Chelsea against Sheffield United, if you decide to invest in them. Antonio against Fulham. There are alternatives if I don't go down that route, and I just don't want to do that at the moment. If I buy Son captain me against West Brom this shit, and then he's got Man City away next, and I know he has a good record against Man City, but it's like I feel like I'll just a little bit like you. I'd rather go Grealish, leave the money for a little bit if I decide to make the move now, and then I'm open to get from say a Bamford to a Danny Ings or something like that if I want to.
What's your thoughts on Aston Villa's fixtures? I think they're a bit mixed. I mean, the West Ham game I think is decent. Then they play Arsenal. So that's obviously going to be a fairly tricky game. After that, then they've got Brighton, which is decent. But then they go into Leicester and then where am I looking here?
Leeds, Wolves, Newcastle, Sheffield United.
Yeah.
It depends, right? So for me, fixture-wise, I wouldn't look any further than game week 29 at the moment, which is the blank. And there's no point looking further than that because we don't even know what that game week's going to look like currently. And my intention, obviously, is to wildcard in game week 30. Now, the fallback options I've said previously, if I'm in a bad position, then I'll wildcard in 25 or 26. I've used the bench boost. It doesn't matter if I do it on the game week, for example, unless I want to use the triple captainship. Whereas I think you've got 2 splits of camps. There's one who are looking at longer term, so perhaps have already used that wild card or want to do similar to what my thinking is, or you've got another camp of people at the moment who are literally just looking at the next 3 fixtures. And if you're looking just at the next 3 fixtures, I think they deceptively look quite nice. West Ham, Arsenal, Brighton, but actually all 3 are quite strong defensively at the moment. I mean, Brighton are now 3 clean sheets in a row, for example. Finally, that XGC, expected goals conceded, is starting to look a little bit more like what we always thought that it should look like. West, you're decent defensively, and so are Arsenal. I don't really care what anybody else says. I showed that again at the weekend. So it's a little bit deceptive that the short term is not perhaps as great as it looks for Villa, particularly for the offensive players. But I mean, for me, looking at that potential run of the 9 games or 8 games, it looks very attractive as an overall.
Plus the doubles that may potentially get.
You don't have to play Chelsea, you don't have to play United, you don't have to play City, you don't have to play Liverpool. For a long stretch, that's almost enough to say, that's all right.
Shall we look at the fixtures from the weekend? It's nice to have all of the games having been played over just the 2 days this weekend. So starting with probably one of the biggest surprises in Everton 0, Newcastle 2.
Though interestingly, every week I see comments saying, I wish games were at the same time. Listen, there were 3 games on at the same time at 3 o'clock on Saturday, and everyone was still moaning about how shit all 3 of them were. Everton and Newcastle, I guess this is a surprise result of the weekend. Some might think
it really is, right?
Some might think it was Brighton beating Tottenham, but I warned you. This was deserved, is the
Steve
first really important thing to say.
Is the cat with 19 lives. Forget about 9 lives. He just, when he needs a result, manages to pull one out that just keeps Newcastle far enough away from the relegation zone that there's no worry of them getting dragged in. Every now and then they just keep picking up a result like this.
To be honest, literally suddenly it's 1 win since December the 12th, I think, which works out about 10 game weeks or something. And suddenly I'll do it right now because Fulham aren't winning games and stuff. And they've got Palace at home next. And then if they win that, you go, we're probably safe, aren't they? Gap's too big, probably.
Yeah.
Callum Wilson was man of the match by miles. It was more obvious than in any other game this weekend. It was so thoroughly deserved. This was his best performance for Newcastle. That might feel simple to say, considering he scored 2 goals, but it wasn't actually about the goals. It was about his other work in the game. He bullied them a little bit. It was very good. Looked stronger, a little bit leaner. Perhaps another player who sensed the importance of, listen, the guy in charge signed you, step up and start doing a little bit more. He assisted a lovely goal, as I said last week in the Leeds game for Almiron. Wilson was certainly helped by the fact that players could get closer to him. The balance of the midfield was a little bit different because Hayden just stepped off a little bit deeper, which allowed Shelvey and Hendrick, who, I mean, Hendrick is an extremely limited player, but breaks into the box quite well. Shelvey can obviously play. It allowed them to get closer to Wilson. Fraser didn't do a lot, but Almiron's busy as, right? I mean, he should play most games. And they've got the benefit of now where in the last 2 games, they brought their main player on in St. Maximin and they've looked better in both games. And the second goal that they scored, Wilson's second, which was obviously a counter at the end, like if you'd shown me that goal and didn't tell me he was playing, the last team I'd have said that was Newcastle. It was a brilliant goal. Really good. They outshot Everton. This was no fluke.
Are you concerned at all about Everton? Because the talk was once Rodriguez, Richarlison, Calvert-Lewin are all fit and they've got their front 3 back, then they will be scoring goals and doing bits and moving up the table. I mean, I'm glad they lost because I see them as competitors for the European spot, well, Europa League, let's be honest, is what we're being specific about. So I'm glad they lost, but I still do think Everton have the potential to be top 6.
Well, I spoke before the game in terms of saying this could be a really big week for them in terms of you'd expect them to win against Newcastle. And then with Leeds, Fulham a couple afterwards, they had a real shot, put themselves in the race for the top 4. And they still are because they've got games in hand and stuff, which can put them in a nice position, actually. But it just psychologically, it's a big blow. The interesting point from the game was Luca Dean obviously went back to left back.
Yep.
Which made me more pleased that I haven't bought him. Listen, Luca Dean's been a very good FPL asset at many occasions at left back, but I think a few of us were hoping he was going to stay left midfield. This was more of a 4-2-3-1 with James floating. Iwobi played on the right, ineffective as per usual. Richarlison on the left. Rodriguez got kicked to fuck in the game, to be fair. Calvert-Lewin did nothing, but I don't actually regret sticking the armband on him in hindsight. I mean, I would have gone Gundogan was my alternative, then probably Salah. It's easy to say afterwards, yeah, Salah was the best choice. But to be honest, if I'd have seen that Liverpool team, I definitely would not have captained most. No, I definitely would not have captained him. Well, no Mane and Firmino on the bench. And I know, yeah, I can hear people going, yeah, but Salah's stats are better without Mane. Terrific. Listen, I would not have captained Mo Salah if I'd seen that Liverpool team.
I think the only reason I would have captained Salah is because his record against West Ham specifically is very
good. Yeah.
Very, very good.
So Dean back at left back, Coleman at right back. And I've been speaking quite a lot about, I thought Ancelotti didn't want to drop particularly Ben Godfrey from the back four. But actually thinking about it once the game started, you wouldn't want to play fullbacks like Godfrey and Holgate against Newcastle. You would want offensive fullbacks. Seamus Coleman's dipped quite a lot in the last couple of years. He's obviously aging a bit. But yeah, it made complete sense to play Coleman and Dean as the fullbacks in this game. The reality is, Everton just didn't play very well. Quite sloppy in midfield. We've only got Allen missing now. So it was just an underwhelming day. I think the result will stop anybody else going and invest in them. If you've bought Dean or DCL or something else, like hold fire, sit still. It's Leeds in the week, and we move on and we assess afterwards. I think that's... See people, I've got to get rid already. Yeah, all right, it was shit. But playing Newcastle and playing Leeds are two very different things. And Everton, I think they struggle in certain games where they have to dictate the play and teams obviously sit off them. Newcastle were happy to defend the penalty area. Against Leeds, people like Richarlison could have a field day on the counter-attack and stuff. It depends quite a lot on how Leeds play. And if Everton defend properly, then they can have joy offensively. I would not be selling the Everton assets.
No. Crystal Palace 1, Wolves 0. I didn't watch this. Did you catch this game? I don't know why I bothered watching the Manchester City game, but yeah.
Well, you tell me, because I messaged you at 2:30 and said, you're going to watch City? And you went, yeah. And the damning indictment, particularly for Wolves, is I said, well, I'm going to watch West Brom and Fulham then. Yep. So I had Palace and Wolves on mute on my phone for the first half. And every time I looked up, I don't think the ball was even in play. It's not even in play. It's awful. So I gave up on that. I watched the second half back very late on Saturday night. And Palace, interestingly, PVA back in at left back. Tyreek Mitchell dream is dead again, guys. Obviously looks stronger on this left-hand side. And it's interesting that Zaha basically played. Him and Eze swapped quite a lot. But he basically played out there with Eze essentially. He played Batshuayi right through the middle. And with Jordan Ayew also on the right, it suddenly looked like quite an offensive Palace team. And it might be that he's decided to do that because of this really nice run of fixtures they've got. Newcastle, Leeds, Burnley, Brighton, Fulham is the next 5. And it could be that he's gone, well, there's an opportunity here for us to be offensive and actually try and really win games and take them by the scruff of the neck. That might be one reason why PVA's come back in. Because I think he did trust Mitchell more defensively, but it wasn't as good for them offensively. Probably feels he can take more of a chance in these upcoming games. Benteke was a sub. They've now got, obviously, Matete in as well, who can play up front. We haven't seen him as yet. So that suddenly you've gone, fucking hell, I got like 5-6 players who can play up front, actually, in various guises of a 4-4-2/4-4-1-1. If you were investing them, it would probably still be Zaha for the moment. I just don't think I want to do it.
No, me neither.
And Wolves.
Yeah. Too much rotation risk. I mean, Van Aanholt now, I think when you get into the transfer window, he obviously missed a few games because of the contract stuff at the end of the summer. Quite often clubs get to the point where they're like, well, look, we're not going to be able to do a deal anyway. We're going to lose him in the summer anyway. Rather than leave him on the bench, we may as well fucking use him while we can for the next 6 months because you're cutting your nose off to spite your face. So I think where Van Aanholt might have missed out a little bit because they're like, if you're not going to commit, you're not going to commit. At this point now, they're probably just thinking, so that we'll take what we can get. I didn't realize that Van Aanholt is 30. So he's not exactly a spring chicken in that sense. whatever they get for him now is going to be limited anyway. I heard rumors floating around that
he's not exactly retired either, though, is he?
No, and he is fit and he does get up and down, but I think there's a difference between what they might have been thinking they would have got if he was younger. At 30, the talk was Arsenal needed a backup to Tierney. Van Aanholt could do that. Would he go to a bigger club and then be a backup? I'm not sure, but
well, he's been a backup at Crystal Palace for the last month or so. So
well, true, but I don't know how much of that was because Mitchell's better or Van Aanholt's contract stuff. But I think PVA will play now moving forward.
I think it had a lot to do with, and we'll find out over the next 3 or 4 weeks, I suppose. But I think it may have quite a bit to do with opposition. Again, though, still not an investment for me currently. I think what it would do now is if I decided, it's a good run, I want to get a defensive one, I wouldn't bother with Mitchell now. I'd just go for Joel Ward. Fuck it, he's going to play twice. A little bit more expensive at 4.3, but it would be a safer play. Wolves, there were some rumours on Saturday night that Nuno was getting sacked.
No.
Which has calmed down and seems to now not be happening. But it was a large rumor that went around Saturday night that he would potentially be getting sacked today. That seems to have been fabricated, and it's not true by the looks of it. But I've spoken about this. Like, they're not just going to sit on their hands and accept what's going on. The reality is they've got one player injured. Now, he's their most important player, Raul Jimenez, no doubt about it. But if they've not been good enough, have they?
No.
I never look forward to playing them, but they're one of the few teams at the moment I'd think, I'd play you and not worry about it too much. They only look like they're going to do anything in the game when Neto gets on the ball. They're better off going with the back five, as I've been screaming. But then the end result is they've done that. They've looked better defensively. Conceded 1 goal here, which was well taken by Eze. They got the clean sheet at Chelsea, but they haven't looked like they're going to score in either game.
Yeah.
The boy, William Jose, played up front. Looks a bit of a physical presence, and he's more like Jimenez. So they probably will benefit from that. Not an FPL look at the moment. Arsenal, Leicester, Southampton, next 3. Don't expect a lot. But also, they're in no danger of going down. I mean, that's part of the point about Palace, to go back about playing Mitchell or PVA. Palace on 26 points now, 12 points clear of Fulham. If I was a Palace fan, I'd be thinking, can we start thinking about the future for a change? That's what I'd be thinking. And then play him. He's potentially your left back first day of next season. Just play him now. But it's up to them. But Wolves would hold literally zero interest in terms of what they're doing. Keep an eye on Kilman again. Because he's back to 4.0 and he's in the team at the moment. But I imagine that's a kind of low priority for a lot of people at the moment. If you buy him, you're not starting him at the moment anyway, I think, even in spite of generally being out to trust Wolves. There aren't actually the fixtures coming up where I think you'd go, I'm playing him. He's 1 clean sheet in since game week 7 or something.
Should we talk about Manchester City versus Sheffield United? I mean, you did say that you didn't think it was not going to be a cricket score. It would probably be more likely 2-0 than 4-0. It ended up just being 1-0. But the first thing that got everybody in a tiz was the lineup. I mean,
the lineup was brilliant.
Yeah, Stones out, Cancelo out. It was literally Sterling out. I've got a mini league that I'm in with only 2 other people, but it's a competitive one. And the guy who's top, good friend of mine, had Sterling captain, Mahrez vice, Stones in defence. That's just absolutely brutal. To be fair,
I saw someone.
He had Callum Wilson.
I saw someone who triple captained Cancelo and had Sterling as vice.
Ouch!
Shit happens, eh?
Ouch! Exactly.
FPL disasters.
No, and I just think this I was bored, to be honest with you, and I think Man City were bored. It was they got their noses in front early, and after that, I mean, 75% possession throughout the game.
You would expect that, wouldn't you?
5 shots on target from that, though. I mean, you're talking about the.
So why was that? Could you watch the game? I've not watched any of the game.
It was literally a get the job done. I just don't. I think they were in first gear, maybe second gear for moments. Other than that, it was just they weren't aggressive. They were passive. They were knocking the ball about for fun, keeping control, knowing that there are bigger battles to come. I mean, they've got Liverpool in a couple of weeks, right? So, or a couple of matches time. So literally conserve energy. We haven't got a full strength team out. We've got these guys beat. We don't need to break sweat here. Keep it simple. I mean, Sheffield United gave it as good a go as you could, but as West Ham saw last night, it's hard to win a game of football when you don't have the ball for much, especially against a team like Man City. I just think they were very, very
Don't tell Mourinho that, will you?
first or second gear, and didn't need to. They literally did what they needed to win the game, take 3 points. Let's move on. It's very much like, what do we need to do to win the league type mindset now, and preserve energy, because they do have a game midweek, game at the weekend, FA Cup next midweek, game again after that, Champions League restarts after that. So yeah, I just think it was very much a 1-0 because Manchester City couldn't be bothered to score 3 or 4. Had they put their foot down, of course, they could have scored more.
I'm not going to do anything tactically on this game because, like generally, as I said, I didn't watch it. And my instinct is, when you said you were watching City, I was quite pleased anyway, because with the way these two teams are, I didn't think there was a lot to learn from the match. I thought there was probably more to learn, specifically actually for my own FPL team in terms of watching West Brom Fulham. Interestingly, Guardiola made one substitution, which he brought Rodri on in injury time for Ferran Torres. And we've seen this, we saw this during a period where they had Champions League games earlier in the season, where he went 2 games or so and didn't make any substitutions. And he changed the team quite a lot between the 2 games. What I never get with Guardiola, and particularly for a game like this, is the whole fuck Pep bald fraud mentality. I just don't get it. They're playing the team bottom of the league in a hectic fixture schedule period. If he's going to rest players, when do you think it's going to be? Now, I think a lot of us thought, because there was 4-day breaks between West Brom, Sheffield United, and then again to Burnley in the week, that there was a good chance that you'd go full strength in all 3. He hasn't done it. But I don't get that mentality. Man City, it's Man City. Generally, we've been quite lucky with City rotation on the whole this season. I don't get the being annoyed with he's leaving players out home to Sheffield United. Like, you couldn't see that as a possibility. Of course it's a possibility. They're the best team in the league playing arguably the worst team in the league. There's every chance he's going to rotate. Yep. And it's the same on Wednesday. So because of what I've just said about substitutions, I would genuinely even say there's a possibility, for example, that Diaz might not play in midweek. Yeah, I think he will.
I mean, Stones has had a rest.
Exactly. It wouldn't surprise me
that Diaz now gets a rest. And Zinchenko is all right, but I could see Cancelo easily coming back in for him.
Well, I think Kyle Walker will play at Liverpool. So I think those who were left out and had no involvement, so Sterling, Mahrez, Rodri, John Stones, Cancelo, you would expect all to play. But then are we suddenly in a position where Diaz and Laporte have played together and Guardiola's gone, yeah, actually, I remember why I liked this partnership. And that's the end of John Stones. Well, we won't know that yet. I suspect John Stones will come back in for Laporte, most probably. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if Diaz got a break in midweek. It wouldn't surprise me if it now meant that Gundogan or Foden got a break in midweek. Therefore, if I wanted to captain a Manchester City player in midweek, it would now be Cancelo or Sterling. That would be my take on it.
Yep. I think I'm going to stick safe and just go with Mo Salah at Liverpool.
I heard Ramsdale made some good saves.
Yeah, and City will still create chances, even if they're not going full strength, right? Just because they're just absolute quality at the end of the day. But I think we have to be a bit wary with City that they're not going to, every game is not going to be a cricket score. Sometimes you will get the situation where they'll know they've got the job done and take their foot off the gas. To where you're expecting 4s and 5s and let's pile on in like we saw the other week against West Brom. It won't happen every game, not because the opposition are going to be defensively good, just because City do take they do what they need to get the job done, which is the most important thing.
The thing that really put me off captaining Gundogan, which was my thinking had I not bought DCL, was Guardiola's comments on Friday about saying that they actually struggle against Sheffield United. And in the 4 meetings, City have scored 6 goals against them. It's been 2-0, 1-0, 1-0, 1-0, actually. It's not something that we'll have to worry about next season because there won't be a 5th meeting in a row. I don't mean that badly to Blades fans. That's why I wanted to mention Ramsdale, because I've slated him all season long. The one time I don't watch him, apparently he played quite well.
West Brom Fulham 2-2. You did watch. I saw the goal flashes coming in I had Areola in goal. So up until a certain point, I was thinking, all right, there might be some clean sheet points here. Fingers crossed. There wasn't in the end. Expected Fulham to win, and they didn't. Why was that?
You'd have to ask them for a start.
Okay.
Because the game looked like that Fulham were going to do what everyone else has done at the Hawthorns recently and smash them out of sight. And I think Decordova-Reid went through for a second to make it 2-0 and hit the post. And I think if he'd scored, genuinely, I think Fulham would have done that. They would have got 4 or so. I don't think I've seen a game this season where a team has been so dominant and found themselves behind 20 minutes into the second half. Like, honestly, they battered West Brom. They completely dominated them in the first half. West Brom couldn't even get in Fulham's half. It wasn't a case of Fulham had a better side here. They were all over them. It looked like a League Two team versus a Premier League team, or a bottom of the table Premier League team against a Champions League team. Fulham was so dominant. There was a couple of reasons for that. Lamina back in was something I thought would happen. Him and Anguissa as a partnership's really good. They have good control. Although Harrison Reed got a brilliant assist for Caballero's equalising goal. Robinson being back was really important. It felt more like their best team was back together. Though Mitrovic started, I know Dara at the Tinkerman, our Fulham correspondent, has been saying he wants him to play. And the reason Dara wants him to play is because he will score goals if given the opportunities. And that's the main problem for Fulham at the moment, because they honestly should have won this so comfortably. I think it was part the opponent that it made sense to play Mitrovic, because they knew that they were going to dominate them and the ball was going to be in and around the box quite a lot. I think for Leicester in the week, they'll be better off going back to what worked at the King Power earlier in the season. Play Cavallero up front, have more runners from midfield positions. Although Mitrovic facilitated it really well, because when he dropped in deep, one of West Brom's clowns defensively always went with him, and it opened up space for Lookman, or particularly Decordova-Reid. Powered through from the right. It's something that Loftus-Cheek should have been doing more, because there was so much space to run into. Sam gave up on a 5-4-1 after 24 minutes of the game. God knows what the meeting was after Man City that apparently went on for 2 hours, because whatever they decided on together was given up after 24 minutes. They were no better in the rest of the first half when they went to a back four. And I literally think what happened is Fulham came out for the second half and they just thought, this is so easy. The goals will come when they come. And West Brom just played on the front foot a little bit more. Then they equalised. Then they get a breakaway for the second goal. And then suddenly you're like, how are Fulham losing this? And it became a bit of scramble to get a draw in the end. But then once they got to 2-2 and they realised they kind of got themselves psychologically back in the right place. Again, there was only one team was going to win it in the end.
Yep.
And it would have been Fulham. But they're now, I mean, they're really adrift now. They can't.
7 points behind Brighton. 8 points behind Burnley and Newcastle. It's starting to get too big a gap that you can see them turning it around.
If they draw every game left, they're going to go down. Unfortunately, they need to start winning some games. And from that extent, they need to start getting themselves in. It's hard to be critical of them because they played really well. But at the same time, they had to win that game. They didn't have to win it pre-game. But in the game, the way it was being played, they had to get the job done. It was West Brom were happy with the draw at the end. Honestly, it felt like a championship team trying to get a replay out of a big club. The disparity between the two teams on the pitch was absolutely massive. Just a note on new signing Dieng, because if you didn't watch the game, and I suspect a lot of people probably would have watched the Man City game, new signing on loan from Galatasaray. I didn't even know till he was coming on the pitch who he was. I didn't even know the signing had happened. He assisted Pereira's second goal. And by the way, wasn't West Brom better once they managed to get Pereira back into central positions rather than having to track Anthony Robinson for the first 25 minutes anyway? So he might be one that's caught the eye. And I think it rings similarities to players that Allardyce has done decent with and had favourites with before. People like Umar Niasse and stuff spring to mind. You think, oh, he's got a little bit of a turn out of him. For those who are thinking this is suddenly the answer for West Brom, let me tell you that yes, he assisted Mateus Pereira for the goal. He completed 2 passes in his 45 minutes on the pitch. And that sort of stat sums up how this game went.
Good enough.
West Brom will probably get beat at Sheffield United tomorrow. I want to watch that. No, I'm serious. Because it could be quite funny. I'd rather watch that, I think, than Wolves versus Arsenal, because I'll really look at that and I think Wolves won't score. I think I don't want to watch that.
No. Talking of not scoring, Arsenal 0, Manchester United 0. I caught the second half of this. Funny that we did a quiz last week for the Patreons on 0-0 draws. This wasn't the worst 0-0 draw that I've ever seen. There were chances. Both teams did okay. I don't think it's funny. It was not a bad watch, but I also don't think it was like massively high on quality necessarily, if you know what I mean. It was a good watch and a decent game for the second half, but it wasn't great quality. Mistakes made.
Spoiler, there were 2 Arsenal and Man United 0-0s that featured in that quiz as well.
Indeed. If you like a quiz, you should probably become a Patreon, but that's a story for another day. Oh, it's the first of the month today. Perfect time to join. Anyway.
Do that at the end.
Yeah.
This wasn't... this is a difficult game to kind of analyse for a number of reasons. One, because... Actually, I'll start here. So United have a problem where they're going round in circles with the central midfield problem, where they're better when on the ball when Pogba goes into that area. So McTominay, I mean, he was being sick for the first half hour of the game. I don't know what was going on there, bless him. Did anybody else have that moment when he's on the pitch and he's got COVID and they're all fucked? We wish Scott McTominay well because he really didn't look well at all. I don't know why he lasted so long.
How he ended up out on the pitch was a question.
But when Pogba goes and plays central midfield, United are obviously better on the ball, right? You've got one more attacking player on the pitch. The problem is they're also quite open to counter-attacks and stuff. And they have multiple issues when he plays there because his best partner really is Matic. Because Matic senses the danger for Pogba. Whereas Fred brings United energy in midfield that they really, really need. And it's never there when he doesn't play, as seen by Sheffield United. But he also likes to go and hunt the ball and press the ball, which means if you beat Fred on the press, there's a chance that Pogba won't be covering and then you're in and you're hurting them. And I think they just have a circle. They're going round and round trying to find the right solution. I think, generally speaking, Solskjaer's got it where he wants to play in these more high-profile games or games where he thinks they're really susceptible to the counter or something like that he'll play Fred and McTominay. I think he thinks that. And then in games where they're going to dominate the ball, he'll go Pogba and Matic. I think that's what he wants to do. But it's just a circle. Because you don't really want Pogba playing left wing or right wing. That is where you want him. Or you want him at 10. Well, he ain't going to play at 10, is he? Because the other guy's he's too valuable. Yes, he's having a little blank spell. Although I saw comments, I didn't see it, but I saw some analysis put comments out yesterday saying Bruno Fernandes has a problem in big games 7 days on from scoring the winner against big rivals Liverpool.
Yeah. I'm not buying it. I mean, so much so that how often has he been on a dry spell for a long period? He hasn't. Southampton at home, if people were going to captain him, I just think Brighton at home for Salah, if you own Salah, is just too easy a choice to make. But I think Bruno is captainable this midweek. Just because he's been on a lean run, you know that he's going to pick up a penalty or a free kick or something.
Well, we've seen that yesterday with Salah, right? These great players don't suddenly become bad players. You have bad spells, fine. But it's an inevitability that Mo Salah was going to have a game soon. Of course he was.
Oh, of course.
And it's inevitable that Bruno Fernandes is going to have a game in the near future as well. So I agree with you. Yes, you'd go Salah captain over Bruno Fernandes for this particular game week at the moment, unless there's 2 reasons why you might consider different, and we'll possibly talk about when we talk about their game. One, are you worried that Salah's now in for the rest? I don't think he is. We'll do that later. And obviously, Brighton have now kept 3 clean sheets in a row. So do you now think, oh, maybe Brighton doesn't look as good fixture as I thought it was? I mean, I'll captain Salah, almost definitely, unless Klopp gives me something verbally that suggests that he might rest him. Then, yeah, I'll be going Salah this week, I think. Anyway, that's off track. I wouldn't invest in any United player other than Bruno at the moment. I think there are defensive games that you might want to come back to. I think we've learned that Luke Shaw is actually becoming quite important for Manchester United, and the signing of Alex Telles seems to have done him the world of good in terms of he knows if he doesn't play well, he's not in the team now.
And he's very cheap in FPL as well. Is he 5 million now? He was 4.9 at one point.
The thing is, he doesn't get any attacking returns or anything. He's one of them. I think psychologically, you think, oh yeah, attacking fullback, he gets attacking, but he doesn't. He just doesn't get attacking returns and that. So you'd be getting him for the clean sheet, and then you just wonder, when we've all got money going spare, is it actually better to pay more for someone like Maguire, who, I mean, Lindelof and Bailly, I wouldn't go anywhere near. But with Maguire, you've at least got that threat from the set plays and stuff. Yeah. And you know that he will play if fit. I think this was quite a decent result for Arsenal because we're basically missing their three best players in Tierney, Saka and Aubameyang. So thinking the circumstances, it was a decent result. They were the better team in the first half of both halves, if that makes sense, sort of first 20 minutes of both halves. And they had chances to win the game. Particularly first 20 minutes of the second looked like they could maybe go on and win it. Suj is so incapable of putting things on mute.
Yeah, mate. I have too many devices. This is the problem.
Listen, if you had my Twitter account, you'd have your phone permanently on mute, mate. So I think it was a decent result for Arsenal. I would consider investing in them defensively if I liked their fixtures more. I don't think it's worth it when they've got like Villa, Leeds, City, Leicester coming up after Wolves. That doesn't scream to me like I really want an Arsenal defensive player, those 4 fixtures. If they had a better run, I'd consider them. I'd tell you what, if they can stay in a similar position by the time they get to sort of game week 27, honestly, they've still got a genuine shot of top 4. Because everybody else is falling over themselves. Yep. You only have to show consistency and you'll start rising the table. And that's what Arsenal have been doing. I think they'll be disappointed they didn't win. It felt like a game that nobody deserved to win, but I'm not sure I've deserved to lose.
Yeah.
It was just somewhere in the middle.
Not great on quality, not the worst. There were chances.
Both could have won. I mean, United did Cavani chance at the end and stuff.
I should have put it away.
They could have won it as well.
Lacazette hit the bar with a really nice, sweetly hit free kick as well. So, yeah. Let's talk about Southampton 0, Villa 1. You said that if you were a gambler, you would have put your money on a good price Villa victory. Came in.
And it would have been a bad choice because Villa shouldn't have won.
I've seen a lot of Martinez benches on Twitter as well with another 10-pointer.
I can understand. It's loads with like Martinez, Areola. And I think if you were in that position, I think if I'd have been in that position, I probably would have done the same thing, playing against West Brom.
I don't think I would. I think Martinez, if I own Martinez, it'd be a set and forget almost for me. And
Listen, to be honest, at half time of West Brom Fulham, I was counting my blessings. In fact, I wasn't counting my blessings. I was counting my Areola points. I already knew in my head it was a 6-pointer. Because I thought there's no way West Brom are scoring here. And it can't be more than a 6-pointer because the geezer ain't made a save and he ain't going to make a save. It was that comfortable for Fulham. Whereas in Martinez's case, I mean, they probably should have had a penalty at the start of the game. Yeah. Admittedly, he could have saved said penalty and got an even better return. But there's a debate that Cash could have even been sent off in that incident. There's the VAR goal at the end. He makes a couple of brilliant saves himself, particularly the headed one. I want to say it was from Bender, but I can't remember. It was a good save. He's a very good goalkeeper and he's a very good FPL option. There's no doubt about it. But
he's top scoring FPL goalkeeper now, is he?
In an odd way, yeah, he must be. Yeah, because I think Pope's actually it doesn't feel like it, but Pope's only got 2 clean sheets in the last 8.
Okay.
In an odd way, this was one of Villa's poorest performances of the season, which is part credit to Southampton. They felt much stronger having Romeo back in the middle. I think it just gives them a bit more control and a bit of self-belief. Obviously, they didn't benefit by having Ward-Prowse at right back. And I said I'd obviously mentioned that battle against Grealish because what was really interesting was they really tried to do Matt Target over. So Ward-Prowse had no worry in his mind about leaving Jack Grealish. It was intentional. It's not what you'd call bad fullback play. This was definitely tactical to try and get a target. Matt Target was brilliant for Villa. He made one error near the end, and I think it's because he was knackered because they were really trying to do him over. And the flip is Southampton obviously brave because they left Grealish quite a lot. From that point of view, you'd probably be a bit disappointed that Jack Grealish has only got sort of the assist here because he could have had more. And in spite of not playing well, Villa, I say not playing well, this wasn't one of their best performances of the season. I still enjoyed watching them. And I think one is because I like how they play defensively now. I like that they're open. And I find them at the moment the smoothest team in transition to watch. And I think it's because Barkley's a good ball carrier. And obviously, when Jack Grealish gets on the ball, you can't take your eyes off the telly. And it just makes them really smooth in transition in terms of the way they bring the ball from back to front. They can either do it slow-paced or fast-paced. They're very, very good at it. I enjoy watching them. I couldn't think of many Villa games I'd watched this year and not enjoyed. Even when they'd had bad displays like Leeds, it was a good game. And even in that game, although they got battered in the end by Leeds, Grealish has had 2 cleared off the line in that game. They could have been 2-0 up in that fixture, for example. So I think Villa fans will feel this has come back around. Like this was one they were owed, maybe from previous decisions or bad luck in other games. They're a good side. Grealish, Watkins, Martinez, Target, Konsa.
Cash. If money's tight.
No, I think you'd go for Target. I think just because of the cheaper, yeah. All interesting options. Genuinely, I've got none at the moment, and it's just a case of, to be honest, deciding how I'm going to do it. There's not a doubt in my mind that I am.
Yeah. I think for me, Rashford to Grealish is a very straightforward move.
On Saints.
The thing with Rashford to Grealish, though, is I don't actually know what I'd do with the rest of the money. I'm going to save the couple of million.
I'm not bothered about spending it because I'd rather, although it's easy to sit there and go, yeah, Lookman to Suj James. Of course, yeah, listen, in theory, that's blindingly obvious. But am I desperate to do it and then play Son versus Chelsea over Soucek versus Villa, which is what it will be, talking about Villa now? I'm just not sure that I am. And I feel like I'd rather make the right decision than just spend the money.
Yep.
Because if I do go Son, he's gonna stay. So it needs to be the right decision for me. Talking of perhaps buying people, getting rid of people, Che Adams now, having not started this, probably a good time to move.
Good time to move was about 4 weeks ago, mate. The guys.
Well, listen.
I'm so glad I binned him ages ago.
In hindsight, yes. He will get returns. I don't doubt that. He's a good player. He's probably a little bit fatigued from having played quite a lot, and obviously he didn't start this game. But I think now Watkins, Antonio, Bamford's going to be back in people's eyes after yesterday, and there are others around that. I'd rather move that on now. I think, and I think with Manchester United now, it feels like a good fixture to move it on. Because if you don't move it on this week, it's Newcastle next, and you ain't moving it on then. Then I'm saying you got to play him.
Yeah. Let's just before we move on to the Sunday. Well, let's move on to the Sunday games. Before we do talk about Chelsea, Burnley, I need to check with you, James. What year is it?
There's going to be some sort of finish line here to a joke, isn't there?
Looking at the goal scorers for Chelsea, I felt like it was like at least 3 years ago with Azpilicueta and Alonso back on the score sheet. I'm just thinking, no, we're not going back there, surely, are we? We're not, are we? It's not 2 seasons ago again, is it? It just felt a bit time warpy that, yeah, Chelsea with the new manager coming in and stuff, quite often you do see a shake up in personnel, like this Hudson-Odoi right wing back style positioning or whatever else and stuff. But as Azpilicueta and Alonso on the score sheet, it just felt odd.
Let's start with the problem for FPL managers, which is respectively probably Ben Chilwell and Reece James.
Who have been 2 of Chelsea's better players this season. It's mad.
Perhaps, there'll be some people out there who've obviously got Timo Werner. I think that's a different case in point. We don't know if Abraham maybe picked up an injury yesterday. If that's the case, he's going to get more minutes anyway. So I think, like, if you're on Timo Werner, you are not selling ahead of Tottenham, Sheffield United, Newcastle. And you shouldn't really be selling Reece James or Ben Chilwell either. My take on it would be, if you've got the bench at the moment, suck this up, because I think Chelsea will keep 3 clean sheets in the next 3 games.
But you
And
don't. But will they play? Is the question.
well,
That's
I get
more
that.
the issue.
But if you've got the good bench, then I think I'd take the chance that there will be some minutes and there will be some returns. I think Hudson-Odoi seems to have the favouritism on right wing back at the moment and has played well in the 2 games. That's important. He's played well. Like, he lasted the full distance in the Wolves game. He got taken off with 20 to go yesterday, but that felt a little bit like with future in mind because he played a lot this week. I think he's got the manager's favouritism for that right wing position. Can't wait to see him run at Ben Davies on Thursday night. Left is more difficult. Stop laughing, you bastard. Left is more difficult to understand.
Thinking, you mentioned Hudson-Odoi. Do you know what came to mind was a tweet that I think it was Matt Clean Sheet Wipeout. I need, forgive me if it wasn't, and it was somebody else who had, obviously without the crowd commentary, you can hear what the manager's saying. I think Sean Dyche shouting to Robbie Brady.
Oh, yes, brilliant. Fantastic. Please mention it.
Robbie, tune in. And Robbie Brady turning around and saying, I know where he fucking is. I just can't stop him. Yeah, fantastic. Fantastic. To be able to hear that kind of stuff does make me laugh a little bit. A separate note, though, right? I think that because there's no crowds, when players get tackled or fouled, they're screaming louder to try and get free kicks.
Oh, 100%.
Because they think the referees... It's like tennis players now. It's that grunt when they hit the ball, just so we know how hard they're trying. I've noticed it more, and I'm like, hang on a second here. I'm sure if there was fans in the stadium, you wouldn't shout as loud as you are or scream like a little girl. Like, get up, man. Come on. I think they're doing it more to get free kicks, and it's actually started to irritate me a little bit.
For clarity, Suj, not all little girls scream.
No, that's true.
That one's going to go down well.
Apologies.
Yeah, listen, obviously, I mean, look, it's a little bit like what I've mentioned before about diving. There's no punishment at the moment, so you might as well dive. As much as we hate that, that's the reality. You dive. I think there's been 4 bookings for simulation this season or something. You might as well do it unless you're already on a yellow card. There's no punishment. They'll look at the incident and they go, hey, yeah, he's dived there. Don't book him, though. Just crack on, carry on with the game. So, and yes, players will scream to get a bit more attention. There is nothing in the laws that says that you can't scream, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, that was interesting. There was one last week in the Cup, wasn't it? Andy Robertson trying to scream at Mason Greenwood as he went to shoot.
Yeah.
Because he knew he couldn't get there. Greenwood wasn't bothered and still scored, though. Chilwell is a more difficult one than James, I think, because this with Alonso has probably come as a bit of a shock. It certainly came as a shock by the time you probably would have submitted your teams anyway. And what Alonso offers, and here's the thing, Alonso offers an amazing goal threat. That's always been the case. Marcus Alonso, if he plays, if you said to me now, Marcus Alonso is going to play the next 3 games, I'd tell you to go and buy him because there's going to be clean sheets and he's probably going to get an attacking return somewhere as well. I just don't know how that's going to play out. Could it be that Tuchel prefers Alonso? I mean, if he prefers Alonso, it makes me a bit nervous about saying they'll keep clean sheets in these upcoming games. The sensible player to buy, though, is Rudiger. Because it's 4.5 million. And it does look like that back 3 will be the back 3. The only thing I would say on that is, I don't think we're not looking at a manager here who's come in and decided I'm going to play back 3 for the next 2 years. That's not what this is. It could change in any game. But if it does, it's probably Rudiger and Thiago Silva. So yeah. Rudiger at 4.5 is interesting because it becomes low risk.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. To be honest, yeah, at that value. Yeah. So I think if I was buying, it might feel like a safe play, but that's what I'd do. I'd just go for Rudiger, 4.5 with 3 games coming up that look brilliant in terms of prospects for defensively. Yes, it does include Tottenham. Honestly, it does. Then it's a little bit tougher after that, but it's not the worst run. Southampton, United, Everton, Leeds. Their double could be United, Liverpool, which is really off-putting. You think that's not a great double if that happens in 26. But we might, by the time we get there, might be looking at sort of like 5-6 clean sheets in 8 games or so. We went through this before with Chelsea, didn't we?
Yeah, they did pick up 5
and it's worth saying we warned then that when the fixtures get more difficult, those people looking at treble Chelsea and stuff like that, it's probably not going to last when the fixtures get more difficult. And probably the same applies here. but the fixtures right now look good. And I think I couldn't be buying Alonso though. I think if I had to buy Alonso as Piliqueta, I think I'd buy as Piliqueta.
Yeah, I agree with you as well. I think, is he still club captain as Piliqueta? I don't know how much impact that has, but
he's just got a knack for scoring goals and creating assists. He's just got a knack for it. Alonso has the explosion. We know that. Look, if you said now Marcos Alonso is going to play all 3-4 games, I think majority of us would buy him.
Yeah, 5.6 million. He's a good buy. Anyone from Burnley caught your eye? No.
But I won't recommend that, by the way. No. And I won't recommend Burnley players either. Although, they've got City this week, so you're not buying them anyway. But then Brighton, Crystal Palace, West Brom, ahead of a potential double, smells of Nick Pope time, doesn't it? And with the money in the bank, although I feel like he's too expensive at that price, I also think, sod it.
It's safe. Yeah, you've got nothing else to spend your money on. Nick Pope's always the one Burnley player that you can go to.
I'll have a think about Nick Pope after this game. I think it's another good reason for me to potentially roll, that I might be then walking into that as possibly as a free transfer, for example. Otherwise, no interest. Chris Wood certainly came off injured. I don't know how serious that is or isn't. Missed Josh Brownhill. Jack Cork played in midfield. Really missed Josh Brownhill. Didn't have an effort on goal until the 94th minute. Never felt like they were in the game at all. This was routine. It didn't deserve to get battered out of sight, but this was very, very routine for Chelsea.
Possibly the game of the weekend was Leicester 1, Leeds 3. I think Leeds, unless you're a Manchester United fan, in which case Leeds will never be your second favourite team in the league. But when they play in this way and it comes off, and the number of people that I see then tweet, I love watching Leeds play. I just love the fact that Leeds are so brave and they just only have one way. And Villa, to be fair, I saw a lot of people mention as well as a team that they enjoy watching, regardless of when they play. But Leeds do have this, you can't help but like the mindset now. And this was another example of where being brave paid off and the gamble paid off. And in the end, they ended up winning quite comfortably. Albeit Leicester did have chances. Meslier, however you want to pronounce it, had to make a number of saves. But in the end, Leeds did come away.
He always does, the bastard, in fairness.
Yeah.
That doesn't come as a surprise. I must say, Suj, you obviously didn't watch Leeds against Brighton. One of the poorer games I've watched this season. It was only enjoyable because of the way Brighton defended, actually.
1 out of 21.
No, You're going to get that.
You're going to get that. But I think overall, people's consensus is Leeds, when they're being brave, are enjoyable to watch.
It's interesting that a lot's been made of this is Leeds' first win against a big team, which at the moment we have to consider Leicester as one because of their league position. But I don't know why they get compared that way. I mean, they're a promoted team. What do we know that they're good, but do we expect them to come up and start beating the big six every week or something? What are we saying? Do we expect them to qualify for the Champions League because they're a big club? It's like we judge them differently.
The second thing is, a lot of money. Either the majority of the team are the same as the team that got them up from.
That's what I was going to say. The team that finished the game all played for them in the Championship last season, so they're doing great. They are. I think it's clear now, and we understand this. They are capable on their day of winning games like this. They are also capable of blowing off bad and getting beat by anybody if they have a bad day. And the way this game started, when Leicester scored, I didn't think anything other than Leicester going to win. They had another one was disallowed, rightly so, Leicester, after Dallas's brilliant goal. Yep. And Leeds' 3 goals were all great from their perspective. But I'm not quite sure why Leicester went so high. It felt like it should have been a 94th minute goal rather than an 84th minute goal. There was still time in the game for them. They didn't need to go that over the top for it. Bamford would have been sold by a lot of people this week and also sold for Dominic Calvert-Lewin and also in many cases sold for a -4. This is why I don't like this jumping between forwards. And it's why I always like to start them. I look at a forward and say, is this guy capable of scoring for me? Not do I think he will score. Is he capable? And I was saying that to people. My deadline stream was Saturday about Callum Wilson. It's like, if you got Callum Wilson, I don't think he'll score today. But I wouldn't bench him. Because he's capable. I mean, someone like Wilson and Bamford, 2 players, won bloody penalties as well, by the way.
Exactly, yeah.
So this is why I always, if you've got a forward, if you've got some, I'm not saying you always pick 3 forwards. You know, if you've got like a McGoldrick or a Brewster or something, then I can completely understand why you leave him on the bench, or someone who's mass frustrating like a Benteke or a Jordan Ayew. But if you've got a goal scorer on your team who's capable, I would just play him. So I'm already seeing this week, who shall I bench? Watkins, Bamford or Antonio? That kind of conundrum. Or DCL. I'm suddenly going to bench DCL against Leeds. Just play them because they're all capable. Ollie Watkins, as we mentioned on the pod last week, like his numbers are unbelievable, and he's going to haul soon.
Yep.
Inevitable. Absolutely inevitable, because he's a good player. He's getting in good positions. He could have scored again at the weekend, that he will score goals. So that would be my answer to that striker rotation. Find a different solution and play them 3 guys, whoever your 3 are, unless you've got one that's obviously ropey. Like Che Adams, you could make a case to maybe leave him out at Man United. Well, because Man United have been so great at Old Trafford this season. Just lost at home to Sheffield United. If I thought Adams would play, and I think he probably will, I'd start him. That's my take on forwards. And it's always the danger when you jump from one to the other on sort of a -4 when they're capable. You're better off doing it when one's injured.
Yeah. I don't think it's worth...
Or in my case, it still didn't work out.
I don't think it's worth panic stations if you're own or sitting on any Leicester assets. But the debate pre-game was Barnes or Maddison. This time around, Barnes scored, Maddison assisted. If it was the other way around, it wouldn't surprise me. So you just kind of hold your nerve if you own one already. And then obviously Castagne is now injured. Pereira came on. Does it mean now Pereira is going to be starting games and could become an asset again? Potentially even Suyunshu got minutes now as well. This is back to the back 4 or what have you of last season that might end up.
I think Castagna was precautionary in terms of his withdrawal, whereas Rodrigo for Leeds is possibly a bit more long term. Yeah, I know. Obviously, Rafinha possibly went off injured as well. Not sure on his status, and Bamford said it was a dead leg and he was fine. So Bamford should be okay.
Should be all right.
For the Everton game in the week. I think this doesn't suddenly make you want to invest in Leeds players. I don't think that's the case, but I think hopefully it's a reminder for people that have got like Dallas yourself or like Bamford for me. Rafinha, if he's available. I've seen a few teams already. It's like, oh, benching headache. I've got Rafinha. Well, there's a good chance Rafinha's probably now not going to play in this week. And if you've got the bench cover, don't worry about it. You've already got the very good first 11. What this does with these benching headaches at the moment is it means you don't have to make immediate decisions. So you can make a decision to, I'll bench Rafinha this week and I'll get a bit more information. Kind of a little bit like what I'm thinking this week in terms of do I or don't I buy Son maybe for 23, for example. That I might just be better off waiting and leaving the money. It's not we'd normally recommend, but it just feels like so many people have landed on benching headaches at the moment that it doesn't feel like firing in many transfers. And I wouldn't be firing Leeds players in off the back of this, but I don't think I'd be selling them either. Rafinha, by the way, interestingly, all of his returns have all been in away games. To add to that as well, the pitch has been relayed at Ellen Road. So what you thought of the shit you saw against Brighton, forget about it. It should be a new pitch. It should run slick. That might be bad news for Everton.
Interesting. James, we'll get to the part of the show that everybody's been wasting an hour of their time to get to. Both your club and my club losing. We'll start with my club because we played first. West Ham 1, Liverpool 3. The way I would describe this is the same way that I felt before the game, despite seeing the lineup with no Firmino and no Mane. And it's inferiority complex. I still think we play or approach some of these games with the mindset that we're going to get beat. And I felt like West Ham played the entire game with an inferiority complex. And a similar thing happened when we lost 3-0 to Chelsea a few weeks ago, where once Liverpool scored, they were going to get the better of us because we were awful on the ball. Like Liverpool didn't create in the first half a lot of clear-cut chances. We defended fairly well. We got the ball out of the box, but they just kept the ball for such long periods of the game. And when we got it, we were so rushed and so hurried and misplaced so many passes, similar to when you played them. You felt desperate that suddenly, shit, we've got the ball, we've got to do something with it. And we didn't play like we normally do. We just didn't play football like we normally do. And then, don't show Salah on his left foot. I know, don't show Salah on his left foot. Everybody listening to this podcast knows, don't show Mohamed Salah inside on his left foot. The second he took that step inside, I knew that ball was going in the back of the net because he's so deadly with it. You don't do that. You can't stop it sometimes. It's very hard to stop because he does it so well. And then the second goal you can't argue with. I mean, back to front in a matter of seconds and bang. His first touch, second touch, too good.
It's probably touch of the season. It was so good.
So good. When teams score goals like that and it's Liverpool, just think, all right, fine. I just can't argue with it. And then the third goal was good as well in terms of neat interchange, quick passing, bang, it's in the back of the net. It felt so disappointing. So many West Ham fans were disappointed because we wanted to have more of a go at it at the game. But it's hard when you don't have the ball. And Liverpool, despite whatever lineup they put out in that midfield, Wijnaldum, Milner, and Thiago and so on, they kept the ball very, very well. Can't argue with it. Disappointing that we didn't have more of a go, but it didn't put me off owning the West Ham assets that I do, because after the Villa game in midweek, we played Fulham, and I actually fully expect us to beat Fulham and get back to doing what we were doing, which is playing much more on the front foot. And the same with Liverpool. I mean, they've just gone 2 games, 3-1, 3-1, and Salah's shown his class.
It's not just Fulham, it's Sheffield United and Tottenham afterwards as well.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't have any. I've come out of it disappointed with West Ham and the West Ham assets, but not put off playing them in the next couple of games or 2 out of the next 3 or what have you. And the same with Liverpool. I own Robertson and Salah. I'm perfectly comfortable owning those 2 and captaining Salah because any given moment the guy is deadly.
But hopefully by the time the Planet FPL derby happens in game week 25, hopefully Tottenham might have Reguilon and Kane back, and it might be a little bit different in fairness. I felt you should have gone a bit more direct more often.
Yeah.
Just because, to be honest, he just smashing it over the top for Antonio. I know it's not pretty, but they wouldn't have liked it, right? You see Antonio on your shoulder running on me. Yeah.
We didn't. He didn't give Nat Phillips enough to think about. He just wasn't enough of a.
No, to be fair, they played well, Phillips and Henderson.
They cleaned most things up.
I can see Henderson moving to centre back in the long term future. Must say it's very interesting to see what Liverpool do today, because listen, they have to buy a centre half today. It's deadline today. Have to buy one. For Liverpool, one of the problems you obviously had was they did play a narrower midfield. They changed at certain points of the game, whether it was a more conventional. It was never their conventional 4-3-3 because Shaqiri never played the Firmino position. So Firmino holds up top and then he comes in and joins in, whereas Shaqiri was always starting from a deeper position. So it had times where it felt like watching a United diamond at some points, where they've done Martial and Rashford or Daniel James as split forwards with Fernandes in the hole. This was obviously Shaqiri. System-wise, it felt like we've seen that a few times, but not from Liverpool. And it moved about into different stages. Wijnaldum was the one who played the deepest, and I think that was to make sure that protection was there from midfield runners, and obviously a bit of a shield in front of protecting that direct ball into Antonio. So I think tactically this was good from Liverpool, but it also felt like it was beginning to fade away and they possibly weren't going to score at the time that they did. They ended up winning the game well because Salah's produced 2 moments of magic. Brilliant pass from Shaqiri for the second goal as well. Because when it first left his boot, I thought, well, that's going to the fucking moon. What's he done there? But it was absolutely perfect. And as I said, the first touch from Salah, immaculate. He will be a very popular captaincy choice this game week. Brighton at home, on paper, looks like a good fixture. Off the back of a return to form. And he looked good as well. It wasn't just the goals. He had a few efforts in the first half as well. He looked more like himself. Interesting, he was blaming VAR for his form. Have you seen that? I wish I could blame VAR for Tottenham's form.
Well, I mean, the goal that got disallowed against you guys in midweek.
Exactly, yeah. He hit that well as well. Yeah.
It was a fantastic finish. So yeah, I mean, Mo Salah. If you think about his consistency over the last few seasons now, I was thinking about it. Will he be remembered as a Premier League great?
He certainly will by fantasy managers.
Because of his consistency now. He hasn't been in the Premier League for like 10 seasons or what have you. It's only 4 seasons or whatever it is now. But will he be? I think he should be, based on the volume of goals he's scored and the performances and the impact he's had in the Liverpool team. I really think he should be. I don't know if he
I don't
will.
disagree with that. I think, to be honest, that'll probably be dictated by Liverpool fans as and when he leaves, in terms of how highly do they regard him for what he was. It probably will come directly from Liverpool fans, because some of them wouldn't put him up there with people of the past, like your John Barnes and stuff like that. So it's probably more up to Liverpool fans.
I mean, you look at Luis Suarez. I think Salah's more of a great than Luis Suarez was in the Premier League, for example.
What, Salah better than Suarez?
Mm.
No, I'm not having that. Nah, I mean, Suarez, the difference, if you just want to do it for a minute, if you were picking a world 11, Mo Salah would not be in it, honestly.
Yeah.
Whereas Luis Suarez, when he was at Liverpool, would have walked in it. Wouldn't have even been a debate, mate. So that's why.
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, there's different positions, different competition within those positions and what have you. But Liverpool's next opponents are Brighton at home, as you mentioned. And the last game of the game week was Brighton 1, Spurs 0.
It's interesting what can go well for Brighton when they stop fucking about with the team. Unchanged.
Yeah.
Three clean sheets in a row. This shit can't be coincidence. You did watch the game.
I listened to the game.
I was hoping you did. So you could analyse it.
The damning thing that I saw on the Sky Sports, obviously on YouTube, put out a 2 or 3 minute highlights reel after every single game. It was made up of all Brighton and one shot from Carlos Vinicius, and that was it. Spurs managed to get one shot into the highlights reel from the entire game. Does that sum it up?
Yes. Brighton should have won by more. I mean, to say the scoreline was unfair would be completely true, because 3 or 4-0 to Brighton would have been a better reflection of the game. Maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit with 4, but Brighton certainly should have won by more than 1. No doubt about it. Dominated this game from start to finish. And what's alarming from the Tottenham point of view is I don't think they had to do a lot to be in that position. Genuinely, I think they defended well without the ball. They made sure that Son was never going to go in behind. I think they knew that if that happened, they were going to limit Tottenham to opportunities. The back 3/5 played very well. And when they had the ball, they had runners going beyond Tottenham all game long. If you want to go back and watch it, a lot of the game, I'd say don't watch the ball. Watch runners off it. It's just constantly wave after wave of people like McAllister, Trossard, running off of other midfielders, running beyond people, getting behind, a little bit how the goal comes from. There was other instances like Alderweireld for Connolly off the line later in the game. So easy. It felt like we had 2 less players on the pitch than them. The whole game. Wow. The whole game. They were very good. This is kind of why I think that they'll get out of trouble. It is, however, only their second home win since the beginning of 2020. Interestingly, against Tottenham and Arsenal, which says a lot for those 2 clubs at the moment. But yeah, good. Thoroughly deserved to win. 3 clean sheets on the bounce. Once they get beyond Liverpool, Burnley, Villa, Palace, West Brom is a decent run. What they have to do when they get into that run this time is win some of them games. And they're probably, in spite of the fact it felt like they're only 7 points clear of Fulham, if they can win, say, 2 of the next 5 or so, that'll probably be enough for them to feel like they're going to pull away, because the gap is already there. And I think there's every chance that they'll do so. Literally no interest from an FPL perspective. Nothing's changed from that point of view. If you want one, it's Duncan Webster. We'll tell you over and over again. Those are the 2 that we think a lot. Although, is that going to change now that he's picked back-to-back teams, which I'm not even sure if he's actually done that before in the Premier League. The one that might be of interest to people, obviously not this week, but in the coming weeks, is McAllister. Didn't return here, but 5.3 million, 0.0% owned, and rightly so, in fairness. He's one to keep an eye on for that little run after Liverpool. But you can't justify it over your Součeks, your Sakas, Rafinha's, exactly what we discussed on last Thursday's podcast. But he's one to keep an eye on. Should we do Twitter questions?
Yeah, let's do them because there's quite a lot about Spurs. I'm not going to pick all the Spurs questions. I noticed what you're doing there and avoiding talk of Spurs. No Kane, no teeth. It's a psychological thing, but I feel the opposition think it as well because I'm thinking now as well. Like we play you in 4 weeks' time or whatever it is. I hope Spurs don't have Kane. And the second you don't see Kane on the team sheet, you think, all right, you know what? We've got a bit of a chance here because it does have an impact when you don't have your best player.
Of course, he's a major impact. He's a major miss. Anybody's going to miss him. Just as big a miss at the moment, though, might be Reguilon. Because he played free at the back at Sheffield United, and it obviously worked out fine. With respect to Sheffield United, that's why we got away with it. It's free at the back at Sheffield United. Ben Davies hasn't gone past a player since probably schoolboy football. It's not a left wing back. Sissoko is probably the best option at right wing back by default because Doherty's worse and though Auria's better, Auria's obviously fallen out with Mourinho. I think we can make that assumption now that Auria wasn't in the 18 yesterday. So that's awful. So we're absolutely battered in the fullback positions at the moment. And it keeps changing the centre halves. He's brought Alderweireld back in. I don't get it. He brought Sanchez back in. Sanchez was poor. But then he switches to a back four in the second half. And then that's the point where I could use Sanchez's pace to deal with the counter. It's just weird decision-making constantly. Højbjerg had a nightmare. I saw a lot of people. This shows you the bubble of how Twitter will influence you, right? So Højbjerg scored a great goal against Liverpool.
Correct.
And in spite of how bad we were, I saw a lot of tweets of Højbjerg's been the best holding midfield player in the league this year. Right, let me tell you. Douglas Luiz, Oriol Romeo. There were other players in this league better than him.
Rice and Didi.
Declan Rice has been better than him. And I'm not even naming players from the rest of the big six.
Yeah.
Stop. It's just bad. Bale was shocking. But to repeat what I said last week, I'll play him up front. Because he hasn't got the he can't go at people at the moment. And there's no space. So I'd play him as a target man. A little bit like how they played Vinicius later in the game. And just let him, if he wants to drop in deep, there was one moment in the first half, he ended up with a Bergwijn shot. And that happened because Ndombele broke the press and beat a couple of players. Go back to what I said about the Liverpool game and not being able to break through lines. And it came into Bale, and Bale instantly played what could have been a Harry Kane pass into Heung-min Son flying down the wing. So Bale can play that role. That's where I want him to play. He probably doesn't play against Chelsea. I genuinely can't see us even scoring against Chelsea. Never mind getting a result. In fact, if we get a result, it'll be 0-0. Literally the only chance we've got in that game, as it would stand right now, without Kane and Reguilon, is scoring first and grimly hanging on. That probably also means taking Ndombele out of central midfield, which will also make things worse. And he went off at the end of the game, so don't be surprised if he's injured as well. It's a wreck at the moment. Yeah, and that's why
Spurs.
That's why I'm sitting there with the money in the bank. And do you know what? My headspace might be a little bit different come Sunday. And in spite of everything I'm saying, Son is still a brilliant captaincy option against West Brom at the weekend because of everything I said about West Brom earlier. Like they're bad, right? So Sonny could still be a good captaincy option come the weekend. That's why I think at the moment I'm just going to leave the money in the bank. I don't want to. I genuinely don't see a scoring against Chelsea without Kane, Reguilon. If Ndombele's out as well, they might batter us, mate.
Wow. Interesting. Keep your eyes peeled for that Tottenham-Chelsea derby game at the weekend. We've had a rundown of the games, James. With midweek fixtures, obviously our recording schedule and publishing schedule and all of that does a little bit of a hokey-cokey. For the last 10 minutes of the pod, we do have some Twitter questions. And luckily, they're not all FPL and boring. So we're going to have a bit of fun in the next 10 minutes. But before we do you want to tell everybody what we have for them for the rest of the week?
People's poll tomorrow. Suj doesn't know the topics, so I'll reveal them to him now. And the poll will be live now. free options for you. And we'll put this out after the FPL deadline, as we did last week with the Thomas Tuchel and Chelsea podcast. Transfer window roundup. We obviously don't know if there's anything major.
That'll be fun.
Well,
I suppose there could be stuff today.
Well, it could be, but at the moment, it could be quite. It might just end up. It might end up being a podcast of why has no one spent any money? It might be more of the podcast. Online race hate is not going away, so we feel like it's potentially a good time to kind of bring this back into the. I say we. I haven't even spoke to you about this. Bring this back into the subject matter. Marcus Rashford, Reece James again over the weekend, following on from Axel Twanzebe. And your other option will be about Barcelona, and are they on the brink of a financial meltdown at the moment? It's one we've got our eyes on in the background. So those are your three options for the People's Poll. That'll be tomorrow after FPL deadline, after my deadline stream. Wednesday will be Sky. We've got Luke from Scout joining us for a little bit of a special on Sky on Wednesday. Thursday will be the game week 22 review, obviously before Tottenham Chelsea, a little bit like we did before Tottenham Liverpool, because I'm not stupid. But then obviously when Tottenham get their pants pulled down on Thursday night, I'll obviously be able to review it on my Ask James stream on Friday. That's the week,
which is what you're getting on Friday.
For patrons, Q&A today, game week 22 differential show preview tomorrow, Tottenham on Wednesday, could be Thursday quiz, guest hosted by Gary Robinson, our Man United correspondent, and game week 23 preview on Friday, plus plenty of extras, articles by myself. There'll be 4 in total for the advanced tiers this week.
Indeed. So if you are interested in getting more Planet FPL content, joining the Slack channel, listening to our quizzes, reading James's articles, or generally just supporting the show, because it does literally help keep the lights on and pay the bills.
And feed my child.
Head over to patreon.com/Planet FPL. It's like 3, 8 or 14 quid, depending on whatever you want to do. We would appreciate it. It's the start of the month, which is the perfect time to join Patreon. You get a whole month's worth of additional stuff for free. I think you'll find that a lot of our patrons do appreciate the additional stuff that goes out. So head over, try it out. No obligation, 1 month at a time. James, a few Twitter questions then, shall we?
Have I covered enough on Spurs, or do I have to do more?
No, we're going to do that more. Your pain is going to be extended tomorrow in Tottenham.
Wednesday.
I thought I'm going to let you leave Spurs because your pain is going to be extended tomorrow in Tottenham.
By the way, I had so many questions last week. Sorry, if it's Amber question, it'd be great. But could I just say, I had so many questions last week. Hey, James, if we're planning for the doubles, who's the best third Spurs option after Son and Dyer now? And the first thing I'm doing, why have you already got two?
Madness.
Do not be buying any Spurs players. And by the way, even if it goes well on Thursday, let me tell you, there's only one player to buy now if it's of interest in his Son. Don't be clever about it. Literally, just forget everybody else.
Amber Redmond says, did you enjoy school sports day? Which races and competitions did you do?
I wasn't the quickest, so I ended up doing things like sack races and egg and spoons and all that horse stuff.
Yeah, I remember later on, I was always a runner, but sprinting. So 100, 200, 400 is what I was good at. I didn't mind 1500. It's later on in life I ran long distance, but it was. To
be honest, I was good at them long distances. To be honest, I was thinking about more like in primary school and stuff. But, I used to be decent, sort of anything upwards of 800 or more. I was pretty good at. I used to play central midfield and stuff, right, when I was a kid. I know you can't believe it now with the double chin and the gut and all that stuff.
You know what I used to love was athletics. So I was in the athletics team at school, and athletics meets, like a football match. If you're in the football team or rugby team, you turn up, you get changed, you play a game, you finish the game. There might be tea after the game, like sausage and mash or whatever.
What for rugby players?
And football, and then you're done and you go home, right? Athletics, the thing is, was a whole day, and you only end up competing in 1 or 2 events. Maybe
like 2 minutes.
Like super good. It's literally right. I used to sprint 100 meters, right? So you get a whole day out of school to go to an athletics meet when in total
to run for the bus.
I was competing for like 5 minutes, and you'd be like, they spend the rest of the day just fucking about with your mates. So I used to love athletics competitions because you used to have to get a whole day off to do nothing. Yeah, those are the days. Jamie Kassam has a question, James. Would you rather stick with Jose or draft in Arsene Wenger for the rest of the season?
I'd rather have Arsene Wenger for the next 5 years.
Wow, there's really a lot of Jose hate at the moment. Morpheus Fire did ask, how much is Mourinho's payoff going to be? I think there is
Too much, which is why he's still in the job. And he'll stay in the job, by the way. So it's kind of it's immaterial talking about it. He's not going to get sacked. So we just have to suck it up and get on with it, really. It's almost, I had a whinge last night, but it's almost immaterial. They're not going to sack him. It's going to cost too much. So yeah, I don't know. A monstrous amount.
This is a question coming in from FPL Binary 01. I know the answer to this. Regular listeners will already know the answer to this, but we might have a few new listeners that don't, James. Love all the work you both put out. Thank you. Appreciate it. Would you rather Spurs finished above West Ham but you finished with a lower rank than me in FPL, or the other way round?
What sort of a question is that?
Exactly. I know the answer, but some people don't.
I mean, my target every season is definitely not to finish above West Ham. To do a lot better than that. West Ham doesn't come into my thoughts. Although for the patrons who listen
this season, they might
who listen to the differential show on Friday, that might seem an over the top comment I said on Friday about you finishing above us, but it don't look so stupid today, does it?
No.
Right. So yeah, but listen, Tottenham, he's way above FPL. Yeah, I mean that's straightforward.
First, for regular listeners, I think the point is football first, FPL second, always. FPL Binger says Star Trek or Star Wars.
Neither. I ain't got time.
Star Wars, obviously, for me. The problem with Star Trek is that there's too many different spin-offs, and I have no idea what's what with Star Trek. Like, you take me back to the good old classic.
Whereas opposed to Star Wars making that the first film 30 years after they made the fourth or something.
Yeah, I get that.
Okay,
but
cool.
There's a chronology to it. So Star Wars has a
what order should you watch them in?
About Star Trek. That's a good question. I put that out as a tweet a little while ago when my brother was down and he started watching them. He didn't know what order to watch them in. He got to 30 and he hadn't ever seen them. You watch them in the order they were made.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
But Star Wars definitely over Star Trek. So, question for you both. Pod aside, in a hypothetical world, this is from FPL Telling, would either of you give up your FPL team tomorrow and stop playing this season in exchange for going back to see West Ham and Spurs live each week for the rest of the year?
I'd say no hesitation, yes, but I'm not.
Yeah, I'm not convinced now.
Tottenham, listen, I'm telling you that Tottenham Hotspur do not want fans back in the ground at the moment. Absolutely, we'll be better off without fans.
It's funny, I think yesterday we would have benefited from fans that would have just given us the emphasis to attack a little bit more. But
generally speaking, other than my wife and my son, I'll give up anything to go back to football again. Yeah.
But this season, I think I wouldn't bother now. I think that there's only 10 home games left, or maybe even less now. There's 20 games in total, so we might have 8-9 home games. Would I give up my FPL team and FPL season for the sake of 8 home games, having not been all season? I don't think I'd bother now. I think I'm fine with just watching them at home.
I'm quite tired of the thinking about the going back and knowing that I'm still skeptical about it. I'm still skeptical if we will ever have full capacity stadiums again. I'm very skeptical about it.
Just looking at the questions, James. I think from your post this evening, it's pretty clear. This is the last one we'll go to, FPL Keno. I think from your post this evening, it's clear you want to replace Jose. Who would be the best replacement available right now and why?
Me. Nagelsmann, Allegri.
Is Allegri out of a job at the moment?
Yeah, right? It costs a lot, but yeah. Anything. Hassan Hootel, Dean Smith, anyone whose team plays football. Honestly, there's nothing for us even to support, right, Suj? You just losing interest in games, watching them. It's my team. That's lower than the getting beat. I've lost big games. Shit happens. I've lost games to compare how bad this was last night. I think the only performance that's been worse from Tottenham that I've seen was the last time we went to Brighton. It was actually better than when we lost there 3-0 under Pochettino, somehow, unbelievably. But there's no... As a football fan, do you want to support your team, right? The emotion that it brings you and all that sort of stuff. We don't feel anything. It's like we're going through the motions, praying that we're going to win a trophy. And that's it. When he was appointed, one of the things I stressed about my biggest concerns was Tottenham wasting time. And the reason Tottenham wasting time is because Tottenham, over the last 15 years or so, has been a forward-thinking football club that is trying to rise. You have to remember, like, when Martin Joel came in and stuff, we were a bottom half team, right? Rubbish. Mm-hmm. Then we had a few years where we challenged for Europa League. Then we had a few years where we were close to Champions League. Then we got in it. Then we didn't get in it for a long time again, but we were sustained by this point as a top 6 team. And then we've just had a few years where, I think 3 or 4 years in a row, we was in the Champions League, sustained. So it's always been a progressive football club. Think of the training ground, the stadium, everything has been forward thinking. And you've brought a manager into the football club that you know is short term, in a desperation for no reason other than the trophy. No matter what anybody says, nobody can say to me that when Mourinho was appointed, someone went, well, this guy's going to be in charge for 5 to 10 years. I mean, that's not, because we all looked at it and went, well, the first time it goes wrong, understand to get rid of him. That performance last night spoke to me that the players weren't playing for him.
Wow.
So, and if that's the case, don't waste time. Just get rid of him.
And when money talks, decisions that are made sometimes are not always in the best interest of the club. I don't want to end this podcast on such a negative note, but I don't know if there is much more positive. We're going to be back at you tomorrow with more content, as we always are. If you are a patron, then don't forget we've got the Q&A for you, which is going to be recorded today. That goes out today as well. I've just seen on Twitter, James, West Ham have Winston Reid has joined Brentford on loan until the end of the season. I didn't even know he was still around, mate.
I heard rumours last night he was going to Liverpool.
No.
I've got to buy someone, mate.
Yeah, but 34, 35-year-old Winston Reid. I mean, he was a decent
still better than what they've got. If they don't buy someone today, they won't win the league.
No.
They have to buy someone.
And even if they do, there's a chance
they still probably won't
win the league. Yeah, exactly. Guys, I hope you're enjoying your FPL seasons. Hope you enjoyed the podcast today. Again, on Thursday, running down all of the games, giving you the best advice that we possibly can, or at least a rundown of what we see of the games. Most importantly, at the moment, stay safe wherever you may be, and ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Good luck for this game week. Cue music, please, man, child. And keep being nice to each other.
Please.
Please.